The balance of power mechanic in Hoi4 was introduced in the By Blood Alone DLC, and it was one of the worst features Paradox could ever implement. They did some tweaks here and there, but still, I dread the day I will need to play Switzerland, cause it's just that bad. And in today's episode of Hoi4 Democracy A to Z is a country with such mechanic, and it's Denmark, whose focus tree was added in arms against tyranny, and the balance of power is a bit more polished, but still, it's not a dream feature. It's about if you want to either support the welfare and have everyone live in Utopia or mobilize and drive the aggressors from our land. If you didn't know already, by the horrendous idea of Democracy A to Z itself, I am also a fan of picking the worst decisions in the focus trees to actually find out why would these focuses be implemented in a game. So there is a slight chance I will fully commit into civilian help and not produce a single troop, but that is yet to be determined by Mr. Smittler, as I did put everyone into a historical full random, so we will have to see what will happen in the world. And before going any further, I want to give my great thanks to The Cox, who is supplying the democratic war machine by giving me dollars on Patreon. Very much thanks to you, my man. Also, I encourage you to join the Discord, as there are a few spots left to get some kind of OG badge for being one of the first ones. No more announcements, let's just get into it. As the Nordic land of Denmark, we start with few debuffs and the best leader of all, Santa Claus of course. The game starts with us already supporting the civilians by having low spending on welfare, which in my opinion is very optimal, as I love to invest in a bit more civilian factories so that I can build and trade later during wartime, and not that I would build military factories from now on and in the future I would have to make the guns out of dirt and shit, because I wouldn't be able to trade for resources. I reaffirmed neutrality and went for political unity, as we were not going to support the king in this playthrough. And then the first warning came about the dirty Germans remilitarizing the Rhineland. So people of Denmark, we will unfortunately have to rearm and stop eating lamb chops whilst drinking Valhalla Mjød. But that's, well, maybe not in far future, but we have a bit of time to still be asleep. And seeing these events, I did go for fortifying the borders focus, although I still kept the balance of power on the welfare side. I also had a glance on the horrible state of the army that we had, and I almost cried. How did we go from being the mighty Vikings, conquering the seas, plundering everything and everyone that stood on our way? We were so rich, homelessness wasn't a thing. And what are we now? Some petty land without fully supplied army, and even if it was supplied, the templates are just shit. So there's a lot of work to do, my fellow Danes.
We will restore our lands.
But first, let's give a bit more money to the people in need instead of our army. Good thing with going into the fortify our border side of tree is the war support we get. Or I'm delusional, I don't know. I somehow had a bunch of war support and I installed partial mobilization very early. Not only that, we also get some decisions about bunkers and also the sheer amount of the green that there is. Like, oh my god, my eye's becoming radioactive at this point. I almost kinda don't want to bore you with this part, to be honest, especially that I did put even more political power to swaying the scales onto the welfare side, whilst my focus tree pushed me to the warfare side. That's also why I didn't start rearming in the focus tree yet, as it would tip me way too much to the right side and I would end up with having two civilian factories that wouldn't be fast enough to build mills, and too much mills with no civilians for the trade. So it was kinda a fight between Denmark and, well, Denmark, although I did like the speed at which we got the 4th research slot and could have maybe kept up with the German technology, because in my experience at this point in time I would have 2, maybe 3 research slots and guns from the Napoleonic Wars. Whilst I happily supported the workers of Denmark, a notification from Iceland sneaked into my desk in that they wanted their independence, and I considered to keep them under my heel, but that's not what democracies do, guys. I remember the playthrough where I was playing as the Belgian Congo and did everything in my power to become free democratically and still was refused. And as the tables are turned now and I am the overlord whilst my puppet wants freedom, I decided to let them have it. I hope bros just won't spend it all at once. It's also possible to say that we were already rearming because I was recruiting the punk squad of infantry and the focus G was supplying the war machine with military factories. As it was mid of the year 1937, I also started to slowly press the decisions into mobilizing. But no worry, my fellow unemployed Danes, we won't be taking your money from you instantly. You will just get one less smoked fish to eat next month. I also noticed that the actual allies did form and it looked like they would have stayed together because the cock of all cooks, Neville, wasn't planning on giving up his seat. I was kinda relieved by it because it did tell me that I had the get out of jail free card, but I still aimed to have my own faction, which in future you will determine if it was a good choice or not. And you can see that I already did start to improve relations by proposing a trade, which they of course accepted, as who could have rejected such a deal? And they even wanted to deepen our deal. As the time was getting closer to wartime, I did start to take focuses for the rearming, and I did bump up the conscription law from disarmation to volunteer only, so that you fat Vikings will actually be able to enlist in the army now. And I advise you to finish the lavish lifestyle you're having now, as it's going to be a hell in a few years time. I was also getting dizzy because of all the green text that were flooding my fucking screen. But they look at the focus tree. Everywhere I see, there are green buffs, and it's not like there are some kind of mal buffs or shit buffs. They're like, you know, war support, more oil storage, more oil production, less intelligence, like, oh damn. Then there was the army focuses that would also help due to the crippling debuff Denmark has on their army. And also, yeah, manpower. Little Bocoin watchers, it is time already. Stop watching his videos and get up to bring the glory of Vikings to Denmark once more. It is time, my husbondies. I also had the very cozy option of going into limited conscription through set focuses. So Mr. Björnsson from the family of Björnssons or Björnssons, you better pack up your things and go straight to the front lines. As to be even more safe, I decided to go for finding some kind of protector, and there were 4 options, which only 2 really made sense, to be honest. I mean, do you really think I can ask for protection and non-aggression from the land that I want to be protected from? It's almost like if I would be Haile Selassie going to Babiko Mussolini to ask for protection from Babiko Mussolini, which might have probably happened, that not such unreal scenario, but you get me. Then there were the Soviets, but I don't know, I don't like communists at all. So there was the United Cockdom or the Paralyzed States, so I went for Cock Neville. The next focuses brought me even more to being fully rearmed and just oh my god, look at the buffs. Also reestablished the Landstrom. I think it gave like a bunch of crappy units to hold the ports or something, I don't remember now. At this time I also felt really prepared for the war. Maybe I was lacking in manpower a bit, but the divisions were armed and fully trained. Production was booming, and I was ready to yeah, not take the Smittler's cult, but hold against him, as that was the main objective. Were you really thinking I would actually be annexing them with this fucking crap? And it was also the year that the shit has hit the fan. Czechoslovakia was under attack and no one was reacting, which resulted into the Czechoslovakian drumstick to be eaten from the side. We, on the other hand, we were just campaigning for the next democratic elections that we had. And you know, the fact that Mr. Santa Claus is probably 9,000 years old at this point, and the third option on this list is looking like a man who wants to devour my liver, I choose the option that I have never seen picked before, cause it's always the worst one. And there he was, Mr. Knut Christensen, who just couldn't put any more gel on his fucking head. After completing the focus strength in numbers, I got even more propositions with who should I align myself with, and there were the original 4 I mentioned earlier, but also came France for some reason and the rest of Nordics, with Islandsvelde included. But I already knew they would not get picked for this assignment, as they did demand Greenland from me, which, you know, demanding independence is one thing, but demanding Greenland, that's totally unacceptable, and I should smite thy stinky shark eaters into dust, which I won't do. And because I was so worried that the mighty people who eat ice would declare war on me, I created a Nordic alliance with Sweden, because they for sure would come to my help if something happened, right? In July 1939, things actually started going down. Mustache Man started his rampage and declared war on everyone around him, and Islandsvelde demanded even further territories, which I was more confident to say no now that I had Sweden by my side. Days gone by and the rearming went even crazier to the right side, and then the red swords appeared. We were ready as ever. Everybody prepared. Don't know what was happening in Sweden at the moment, but that doesn't change anything. And then the painter declared war. My aggressive instincts made me push the arrow button, but I quickly regained consciousness and stopped and waited for them to attack. And a thing I also learned is to actually accept all these annoying ass pop-ups so that they won't ever appear again, because this shit makes my blood boil. And then I sat there and waited until the Dano Swedish army drill commenced, but then I also waited and nothing really happened. Well, it might be because these fucking pricks decided to have so many different wars and couldn't hold any front, but before I broke my defensive values, I decided to conscript every single citizen of our land through full social mobilization focus. And even before I could switch to the offensive, the Soviet Union broke the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, thus making Germans even weaker. Like, brothers, I swear the games I want the fascists to be strong actually have a challenge in defending. They decide to turn off the thinking button in their artificial brains and they start shooting themselves every chance they get. And so I did start to push the crowds. I had to micro it, yes, I mean I'm Denmark, but it wasn't particularly difficult, especially after I invited Norway into the faction, and then they had no chance. I did encirclements here and there, and I also had to actually stop a bit with the military spending because I felt like it was bleeding us so much as we did not need that much guns anymore. I mean, we were barely losing guns during this push, but it's not like we need some crazy ass production. After I encircled thousands of Germans, I was even able to enable full frontline offensive. And also the funny thing that they managed to drag their allies into this sinking ship of theirs. And also look how I undermined Swedes. They did make a naval invasion, so my honor is returned to them. You really did a good job, you meatball eaters. And then there was a pause in the attack, because well, we have no people. And you see, if you have no people, you cannot push. I mean, how do you want to push only with guns and not with manpower? Do you suppose the guns will just fly to the battlefield and start shooting the enemy guys? So I had to bump up the conscription yet again, going up to all adults serve. And it's not far from this country to change into a wasteland without a single citizen, as everyone will be serving the army. Even the handicapped guys, yeah, you know the guy who is on the wheelchair? Yeah, we will just strap a bazooka to him to, help in the upcoming wars. And then, you little Björnsson, you won't be able to hide from the officers that will drag you to the army. So then we finally went to defenses, but more like a stance, because they weren't really attacking. We were just watching each other on the borders. One of their soldiers was probably jerking off at this point, and then I guess the hard code of the game proposed the Alta Conference for some reason to me as Denmark. But again, I like to choose options that no one does, that's why I said yes to the conference, not really knowing what it meant, but sure man. I then went and killed even more Germans in the pockets. I also tried to encircle the German side of Maginot, but they bunkered themselves over there, and it wasn't really possible to do that. But it was possible to get to Swiss and encircle even more of these people. So I did it, and after clearing out the western German divisions, I could full frontline attack the rest of them until they fell. The hungry men weren't a threat and also had zero troops. So I continued down to the Balkans and into Greece, which all fell not so long after. And I didn't mention, but I did get declared on by the Soviets. Yeah, no idea why or when, but we were at war. They were also at war with the Finns, the Allies, and I'm pretty sure with Japan. So before I could finish taxes, because of Japan of course, I had to rush into Soviet Union, which was basically walking into farmlands without even farmers. They fell, and with them, small peace conference. I did take pretty good portion of them, so I am overall satisfied. And after the peace deal, the Germans also got a bunch of land there, but I just couldn't be bothered to take it again. I did take few naval focuses because it was a mandatory to take Japan as always, but before I could get bigger fleet, the major powers blew up the Japanese navy. That led me to naval invasions, which was once again a free land for me. And I'm not gonna comment on that peace deal, as I myself am not sure if I'm satisfied or not, but I let it be to your judgment. And then there was a time for internal affairs now, as I needed approximately 23 million manpower to be able to make the occupied lands not revolt against me. Other than that, I had the decision against Iceland, and as they had enough of their freedom, it came time for them to come under our democratic constitution. Then yet another time for rearmament, mainly focused on actually upgrading my goddamn troops, and I went for the famous Jaeger Corps, which were marines with a bunch of artillery strapped to them. After using my scouting ability, I found that I could have declared war on Xinjiang and their Chinese Bazaar commander. And yeah, the sad thing about it is that Poland has yet again to fall. It's just a part of the game at this point. There is not a single campaign where Poland will not fall. I am literally gonna make a goal in the next A to Z video to take down Poland, as the country will be Dominican Republic or some bullshit. And there was also the Chinese Latvia. Not very surprising at all, just the most normal Latvia, you know. And for some reason White Finland was in the commentary too. How much of red is in White Finland? Probably null, but you know, they choose to do it. And they were run through, and the last country that had to fall was Xinjiang. So imagine my Santa Clauses and elves having to go from cold lands of Denmark to whatever the fuck Xinjiangish climate even is. And it could have went better if my allied AI would engage their ability to think and would have connected the fucking railways, but they did not. And I had to do it myself, making the Chinese campaign from around 2 weeks of fighting to like 2 months just to wait for fucking railways. But you know, I accept the peace deal and I'm not complaining. But the next war was on the horizon, and it was a big one. The fight for democracy is around the corner. I had to of course do the cheesy strat of releasing a bunch of shit links, so I would end with max one front instead of having to man all the others. It also took a bit off of my back talking about the manpower needed for garrisons. I justified on the Italians and declared war. The plan was to slowly take them out one by one, starting with the Brits, as they are probably the most annoying fucking country in this game, spamming you with naval invasions and even using submarines, like actual cocks of the game. Well, as you know, my favorite tactics are cheesy tactics and scum tactics, so I waited long enough for the naval domination to tick over 50 and the Jaeger Corps went off to a suicide mission. Why suicide mission, you might ask? Because of the submarines I mentioned earlier, resulting in the great invasion of east coast of England, a total humiliation. and the quick saves come. The second invasion of England was basically the same shit I did before, but I did add few extra suiciders to the invasion so we could flood even more of the coast. And guess what? These fools now, even though we sent even more troops, they left all of their troops from the UK this time. I thought how? I gladly took every inch of it and wanted to take Ireland too, although they concentrated more people on the ships on this naval region than there are citizens of Denmark, so I gave parts of the UK to the Swedes, cause I couldn't be bothered with either garrisoning it with manpower nor with my divisions. The mistake that I somehow didn't see that Russians were also in the faction, and it was almost impossible for me to hold this front. Or you know, I did try to fight and encircle Murmansk there, but I just physically didn't have enough troops to man this shit. There was also this massive naval invasion from the fucking paralyzed state, and my Landsturm wasn't brave enough to hold them in, and I fucking capitulated. But that did not stop me from fighting. I retracted all my troops and started to reclaim what was mine. I took all my starting lands and started to retake the Germs. I wouldn't say it went that bad until the British Raj was doing what they do now in modern times, which was a complete capitulation of Swedes, thus opening second front from Copenhagen, resulting in me falling and getting exiled to Gomel. Out of all places on the earth, I got exiled to fucking Gomel, some Russian poor-ass village in the middle of some swamp. You know what we do then? Save scum! All the way before the war, I took planes more seriously this time and made very good fighters and cast designs. But guess what? I still had no fucking manpower and couldn't even put out these motherfuckers. Or you know, I could, but I wouldn't get like a crazy amount of them that I actually needed. And I also found another sheep I could kill, the Romanian faction. They could have been punished for their naughtiness. And the funny thing was that Transylvania wasn't their faction, and the second I was about to declare the war, they chickened out and wanted to join my faction. And I did say yes, because I had to get there somehow, right? I vacuumed the whole faction and released them to show the world that we are not complete lunatics that want to
take over the world.
And even though I gained these new quote-unquote allies, the actual allies got France, which stretched my fucking front line. But overall the tactics were basically the same. Take over the United Kingdom, hold the French line, and then hope for the best. But even before I did that, Brazil was a free target. They had their own faction, were neutral, and did some war tension. So I swam around 3 continents to get there. And when I landed, there was no mercy for the big-titted Latinas chilling down in Rio de Janeiro. I annexed them without any puppeting, and I think that angered the kingdom enough for them to declare war on me. Or, you know, it might have also been the countless threats I received from them about the size of my navy that they sent out to me, but I just hit them into my desk and ignored them. So there it was. I decided to end the South American campaign after ending Argentina. I released few other nations and stole every unit of my quote-unquote allies to help me in battle. It was also time where I realized I could finally go and help the Taco Kingdom, and I poured all of my resources to building ports over there and sent my armies there. And that fight was a fucking hellhole. The constant markering, the attrition, the running on fumes with manpower, it was a miserable experience even though we did push into their lands. But the problem was that there was way too many of their allied troops. Like fucking Canada pulling a bunch of naval invasions back on Mexico in the fucking Canada. You heard me right, fucking Canada. And on top of that, the Kingdom, the Japan, I think, the French. Overall, miserable experience. And all that whilst scraping the fucking barrel to get any kind of manpower. But after each successful hour push, they sent their counter push or invasion. And the convoy raiding they did was not helping at all. Neither were the other Nordics that were completely eaten at this point by Repubblica Sociale Italiana. So my allies provided zero help throughout all game, and the faction of allies couldn't have been more cooperative. We did get to Miami and overall kept on doing these massive encirclements, but for every encirclement there came much more troops to overtake my burnt out veterans. They just did way too much naval invasions on Mexico, and slowly they kept losing ground, finally capitulating the tacos and taking my dreams of conquering America as democratic Denmark. The French also pushed onto Rhineland, and as I just physically couldn't get any more fucking units throughout the entire game, they broke me. And with it, the sun has finally set on the Republic of Denmark. Our government on our lands was replaced by a fake democracy whilst we were exiled to Uruguay. Yeah, and that's how the story of this campaign ended. As you cannot win every campaign, and the saddest thing is that you can do everything in your power to win, yet you still might lose. And I'm sincerely sorry I couldn't win the full campaign, but god, it was so awful with the manpower. And Komi Republic strat still haunts me to this day of recruiting puppets troops, then annexing puppet to get manpower. Like, god, I don't want this shit. I hope you're not too annoyed, then yeah, I remind you about the Discord, and I will hopefully see you next time.